Enthusiasm, Disc 5.
Chapter 15. Holiday Cheer. The Baby's Birthday. Sweet 16 and never been kissed. My first kiss. The Christmas vacation arrived in a flurry of exams and term papers. The winter issue of Sailing to Byzantium went to the printer. Seth dropped off the disc. I used my last English paper as an excuse not to go with him. I rushed through my essay, repeating ideas from the previous one, but Ms. Nettleton didn't notice. Yolanda's sentence ended, but she got re-grounded for cutting physics to hang out with Adam. Ashley and I exchanged our yearly Hahnemus Chrysica presents. She gave me a CD of songs popular in 19th century parlors. What Jane Austen's heroines would have listened to instead of musicals, she explained. I made her a magic kit from unsold odds and ends in my mother's shop. A bouquet of colorful scarves, a wand cut down from a broken walking stick, a stuffed rabbit. I was particularly proud of the top hat, which I fitted out with a false bottom and a hinged trapdoor on top. I hoped the gift would spark a new craze, but no. "How Jane Austen's characters would love this!" cried Ashley. "Perfect for those long evenings at Pemberley. Hey, what do you think about doing a musical version of Pride and Prejudice? Wouldn't this hat look great on Darcy?" The other major holiday of the season is, of course, my birthday, December 17th. It fell early in the vacation, as it usually does. With his strict attention to his parental rights, my father insisted on my spending alternate birthdays at each house. This year was his turn. I awoke to the sound of footsteps on the ceiling of my basement bedroom. The irresistible accountant was in the kitchen directly overhead, stomping and crashing breakfast into life. I buried my head in the pillow, but sleep had fled, so I put on my bathrobe and slippers and went upstairs. Amy handed me a plate of winter squash frittata, herbed home fries, and sliced citrus salad. "There you are, sweetie," she said. "Happy birthday." Then she burst into tears and ran out of the room. As I stared after her, my father gestured at my plate with his fork. "Aren't you going to eat your breakfast?" he asked. "Go on, eat it. You'll hurt Amy's feelings." I took a half-hearted bite. What's the matter with her? Is my birthday such a tragedy it makes a grown woman cry? Dad gave me a look of grave reproach. "How can you be so thoughtless? Don't you know what day it is today?" he said. December 17th? "Yes, to you it's December 17th, but to Amy it's the baby's birthday." "What baby's birthday? She doesn't have a baby." "That's why she's so upset," said my father patiently. "The baby was due on December 17th. If she hadn't had the miscarriage, today would be his birthday." I did some arithmetic. "How can that possibly be?" I said. "She had the miscarriage in October. She didn't even look pregnant. The baby can't have been due for months and months." "Not that miscarriage, Julie," said my father with a touch of irritation, as if I had missed a very easy question on a quiz. "That was only the latest one. You don't know how hard things have been for Amy. I'm talking about the first miscarriage, the one 4 years ago when Amy and I first got together. After we lost that baby, she was devastated. Don't you remember? She's been very, very brave. But when we lost the new baby again 2 months ago, it opened the wound all over again for her. You'll be kind to her today, won't you? I know you will. It's a very sad day for her, and she's feeling very vulnerable." With these words, my father finished his frittata, put on his coat, and went off to work. I stared blankly at the elaborate eggs congealing on my plate. After a while, I noticed that my brain had continued to do arithmetic all by itself. The sum it produced horrified me. If my father was telling the truth, and there was no reason to think he wasn't, then Amy had already been pregnant for months before my father left my mother. All those weeks when my parents went together to marriage counseling, all those weeks when he swore to her, and me, that he would start fresh, all of it lies. He had known all along he would leave. He hadn't meant a word of it. Of course, I had no illusions that my father had succeeded in the new start he had promised to make. How could I? He had left us, hadn't he? But it was another thing to learn that he hadn't even tried. And another thing entirely to learn it on my 16th birthday. I abandoned my familial restraint fund for good. No amount of imaginary money could ever compensate for this. My cell phone rang. I checked the number. My mother, doubtless calling to wish me a happy birthday. I decided I couldn't deal and let the voicemail get it. Amy came back into the kitchen. "What's the matter, sweetie?" she said. "You're not eating. Don't you like your frittata?" With the house already dank with Amy's tears, I balked at adding mine. It was too cold out for long woodland rambles, however, so I took refuge in the Lewes greenhouse next door. The conservatory, I called it in my head. But unlike the conservatory at Forefield, an elegant structure where cast-iron frets offered up crystal panes to the sun, the Lewes version was small and practical, close cousin to a shed. Hai Chang had built it from plywood and sheet plastic to keep the worst of the cold off his orchids and Lily's vegetables. It was chilly but bright in the greenhouse. The sun wavered in through the plastic and the thin winter clouds. Carefully moving aside 2 pots of hybrid Phalaenopsis, I sat on a bench, breathed in the wet air, and gave myself over to self-pity. The worst of it was, I felt I had no real right to feel sorry for myself. I had friends, I had parents, 2 sets of them, who neither beat nor neglected me. I had good grades, acceptable looks, absorbing activities, all the trappings, I told myself, of privilege. I had my heart's sister, Ashley. I even had a suitor of sorts. Not, alas, the guy of my dreams, just Seth. Imagine kissing Seth. Ig! But what if I couldn't escape it? I was getting older and older, and Seth was the closest I had ever come to anything approaching a boyfriend. 16 years old already, of all pathetic things. What if my longed-for first kiss was with Seth? I began to cry in earnest. The wind ruffling the plastic, the hum of the heater, the gurgle of the humidifier, and my own snuffling sobs filled my ears. So I didn't notice that I was no longer alone until I felt an arm around my shoulder.